welcome to the Life at Siemens podcast. My name is Hope Ellen, today's host, and in this episode, we're going to be speaking all about apprenticeships. And to do so, I'm joined by two apprentices currently at Siemens, Katie and Nathan. Hello to both of you. Thank you for joining me. Let's dive straight in by hearing in your own words about the role that you currently do.
So I'm a degree apprentice. It's a 4-year long course. My apprenticeship is placed in placement. So I do 6-month placements, meaning I'll do 8 over the course of my apprenticeship. I'm currently in my 2nd year in my 3rd placement. So my first placement was in control systems. My second was in signaling design, and my third, which I'm currently in, is in project engineering.
I know you've only done 3 so far, and you've got a few more to go, but which has been your favourite so far if you had to choose?
Project engineering, definitely.
And why is that?
It's a lot. I think it's the most engaging one out of the all of the things I've done currently, and I've got to like yesterday I was out at a social and there was an event organised in Bristol, so that was the first time I'd actually been out and managed to meet with a lot of members of the team.
Brilliant. And how was that event?
It was really good. We went bowling afterwards, so we had a good time.
So it sounds as though, and we'll come on to this a little bit later, there is a social element
yes, definitely.
Of being here at Siemens, and that's just one example. Talk to me as well about doing a degree whilst doing an apprenticeship. Do you do all your work by yourself remotely or?
No, so basically my apprenticeship is split into 4 days working and 1 day uni work. So I do my uni days on Wednesday, and that is a day where I don't do any normal work. I just specifically do uni work. And with my uni course, it is completely coursework based, so I have no exams. So I get given coursework, and every Wednesday I can work on my coursework. And but I also, every once in a while, I go up for a week of lectures at university. So I actually go to the London South Bank University, and we do lectures from 9 till 6. So they're quite intense days, but you get the feel of uni life, because you're actually there at uni. You have lecturers, and you're sitting in a lecture hall, and you're in a class, and you're also with loads of different people. So not just people from Siemens.
That does sound really good. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a while, because when people are weighing up their choices, you can feel if you choose an apprenticeship, you're missing out on university. And what you're saying there is, actually, you can do both.
Yes.
Nathan, tell me about your role.
Hi there, I'm Nathan. I'm a rail systems engineer. I'm with the Open University studying computer science, and that's a 5-year course. So essentially what I do at Siemens is from initial project inception all the way through to project delivery. So that'd be prototyping, testing, the manufacture of hardware, the code and the software, testing, developing. We go through a number of user acceptance tests with the clients, which is basically where they accept or decline the test rig and the spec that it comes with. And we sort of progress alongside the clients to build something that hopefully everyone's happy with and serves the purpose it's designed for.
Why Open University?
It's Digital and Technology Solutions is a degree, and I believe that Siemens offers it predominantly because they've got 4 options, so you can specialise in your last 2 years. So it is either you can do cybersecurity, networking, software engineering, or data analysis, and so all loosely, well, not loosely, they are related with computer science and tie in nicely. So you do your first 2 years, learn the fundamentals, and sort of you can then specialise and go down your desired route.
There are a lot of companies, and in all industries, computer science can tie in.
Yeah.
So what was the main thing that made you want to work for Siemens?
Well, the abundance of technology that's available that we have. The size and scale of the projects, they're multidisciplinary, and technology is at the forefront of that. I was always interested in technology and computing, and it's just seemed like a natural fit.
You say always been interested. What did you study at school, and has that related to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so in school I was heavily interested in STEM. Obviously you study the mandatory, what you have to do. prior to finishing school, year 11. And after that, I did electrical engineering and I studied maths alongside. So developed my maths and sort of computer logic gates, and you learn to code C++, C++, C, bit of Python. So you learn the basics, and it's sort of, I learned that sort of I preferred computing over the electrical engineering route. And so, yeah, I sort of divulged into this route.
Now, you said a lot of words there I don't understand. C++, Python, what are they?
They're coding languages that run on computers, and we use that to design and develop systems and software interfaces.
Which you are clearly fluent in. You didn't even realise you were doing it then, did you? So this STEM subject is a big talking point in our society about more women getting into STEM subjects, young girls at school. So as a female, Katie, how do you view that?
Well, so I went to sixth form and I did engineering, and I was the only girl in my class. And I also did engineering for GCSE, which I was also the only girl in my class. So I did do 4 years of learning engineering whilst being the only girl. So and mostly all events we had where it was like about engineering, if like a company would come in, it was all men or like young men that came in. So I went into engineering with the goal of wanting to do like events and going to schools to show girls that there are girls that work in engineering, because I come from a very like male dominated like environment, because everything I did in engineering was with all boys.
So with that in mind, a lot of people say that when you want to do something, you see a role model and you think, oh, I can do that too. Did you have a role model? Did you see any women doing it and you thought, I can do that? Or did you what else kind of encouraged you?
My older sister has gone into engineering. So she did aeronautical engineering at University of West of England.
Wow.
So she was doing engineering before I did, and I was like, that's cool. I was looking at doing aeronautical engineering, but then I decided to go for an apprenticeship instead. So I think my sister has been a role model to me, but my dad and my grandpa were also engineers. They both worked for Rolls-Royce, so I also looked up to them because they were working with like jet engines and everything. So.
Wow, it's in your blood.
Yes.
Talk to me about Siemens and how they kind of encourage these STEM subjects for women.
Well, they offer quite a few events. I've already been to a local school in Chippenham where I got to talk in front of 3 classes of year 11s, and I did like a presentation on like my life as like doing like A levels going into an apprenticeship. So I enjoyed doing that because I got to like finally talk in front of a class, and it was like finally as a woman showing year 11s that I work in engineering.
So that was one of your goals, and you've accomplished that with the help of Siemens. But how does it feel working for a company that is trying to make that difference?
Oh, it feels really good because I've always grown up like I want to see more women, because I think it would be nicer, especially like you get to relate more sometimes with like women. So I think it would be I'm definitely happy that Siemens are pushing for more women to be encouraged into engineering.
Wonderful. So what came first for both of you? Wanting to work at Siemens or wanting to do an apprenticeship? Nathan?
I think they happened at the same time, in all honesty. The more I became involved with Siemens, the more and more my knowledge and interest in tech grew, and they naturally sort of come together. And I reached that point where I didn't think uni was for me. I wanted hands-on experience, and I wanted to get involved with these test rigs as opposed to learn through a screen at uni.
So you say there that you got more involved with Siemens. When did you first become involved?
So my initial interaction was through year 11 work experience placement, and then that continued over to post-16 study, where I was in 1 day a week throughout the duration of sixth form study. And yeah, that naturally continued on to a degree apprentice.
And you mentioned how university wasn't for you.
Yeah.
In the traditional route. Why was that?
I think in this day and age, I think experience sets you aside from many of the applicants. Everyone applying to STEM-based roles, they all have the qualifications and are capable of doing the job, but not many of them have 5 years experience on top of that with a global leader.
Do you agree with that, Katie?
Yeah, so I also did a work experience with Siemens in year 11, but I more wanted to go into apprenticeship. I definitely decided I didn't want to go to university, and especially with as the pandemic happened, I saw that a lot of it, like my sister was still at university and now she was doing all her lectures from home. So I thought maybe it is definitely better to go into an apprenticeship. And also I'm not really into like the uni life. I think that's not really for me. So I was definitely determined to do an apprenticeship over going to university, but I wasn't really set in stone with Siemens. I knew the like work environment of Siemens after doing work experience, but so I looked around, but Siemens were definitely the best offer because not only did I have the experience from work experience, I've also have family who also work for Siemens, so they could tell me that it's a really good working environment. And then once I started getting pay offers, Siemens was the highest pay offers.
So what other companies, if you don't mind sharing, were also on your list?
Leonardo and Rolls-Royce and Renault.
But it was the kind of culture of Siemens and that money that really pulled you over the line.
Yes, and I also knew, because my dad works for Siemens, they had done days when it was a International Women's Day. So I knew that Siemens was definitely focused on getting more women in as they were running events on International Women's Day.
And you spoke about university life not being for you. What were you referring to when you said that?
Well, I think a lot of like university is like going out in the evenings, and I'm not really into that. I'm more of an introvert. I like playing on my PC. I play a lot of video games in my spare time, and through my sister, I kind of got, because she went to the University of West of England, I sort of got the what was uni life from her, and it was like a really good experience for her, but me and her quite differ in that quite area. So I was like, I think I'd rather prefer an apprenticeship.
It's good that you kind of weighed up your personality traits and what you enjoy to help make a decision, because sometimes it can be quite difficult to look within yourself and to figure out what is the best route. But earlier on, you did mention bowling and you did mention a social event in Bristol that you went to. So there is an element of socialising at Siemens. Yes. Tell me more.
So yeah, there's been quite a few socials since I've worked here, especially after the pandemic. I think Siemens saw that like people, like everybody's working from home nowadays. So I think Siemens as a whole has decided we need to bring people together. So I've been to 2 Christmas parties, which are based in Bath. So like it's nice travelling to a different city and being able to go out in the evenings. And that's with other degree apprentices who I also work with. So it's nice to be around them. There was also a big event last December. It's called an ELT, which is an early learning talent. And it was a company-based social based in Birmingham. So all the different graduates and apprentices and degree apprentices all came to Birmingham, and we had like a big social there. And part of the day was hosted at the University of Birmingham, so we got to go there. And then afterwards it was like hosted, like you could go ice skating or you go to a comedy club, and afterwards it was like a party. So yeah, there's quite a lot of socials that happen in Siemens.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Any good ice skating, Nathan?
I can't say I am.
Moving away from the social side and moving more towards the kind of collaborative approach to working, how often do you work with other departments at Siemens?
There is an element of that. So, especially with prototyping and whatnot, we work quite closely with R&D. But even on a day-to-day basis, developing products and integration. So at the top, we worked alongside Crossrail. They're based at the top. So we've just closed out SIFS and SIFD, which stands for Crossrail Integration Facility.
I'm glad you explained.
So there's that side of external companies, and also internally, we're a subsidiary of the system engineering team. There's about 20 in my team, and the wider system engineering team, I think there's about 60. And so there's a lot to and from between the two teams. We're all working across projects, albeit different aspects, different areas of the project, which all interlinked. And yeah, it's project engineering at its finest, I suppose.
So when it came to choosing your apprenticeship and the one you wanted to do, were there other options that you were exploring, different topics, Katie?
So I applied for 3 different apprenticeships in Siemens. I got offered all 3, but I chose the current one I'm doing because it was with a university. The other 2 were with the Open University, and I thought I think going to a physical uni I think would be better for me, because then I still get that university experience, and it's like because the university are like in blocks of weeks, so it's quite nice to be sent up to London for a week.
Nathan?
I was quite steadfast in computer science, and so the company sort of worked alongside me to meet my interests, and the Open University is a well-known provider here, and so that's the course that they advised for me.
Are there any roles that are offered here at Siemens that would surprise people? Katie?
Yes, so Siemens do many different levels of apprenticeships. So I'm currently on a level 6, which is a degree. For context, a level 3 is A-levels. And Siemens also offer level 4 apprenticeships and level 5 apprenticeships. And then you can go further and do level 7, which is master's apprenticeship.
Is that something that's in your mindset of a future goal?
Yeah, I think maybe doing a master's with Siemens would be a good idea, yeah.
Nathan?
Yeah, most definitely. Especially coming from initial placement, the person that I've become quite good friends with he's recently finished his master's with the company in computer science, so there's an abundance of support there, and so yeah, I think if the opportunity's there, you've got to grab it, really.
Talk to me more about this support. How much is there on offer at Siemens when you're doing your apprenticeship? How much help can you get?
So yeah, on a team basis and throughout the ELT team, there's an abundance of support. I think, especially across the ELT, most people through year 1 to final year in their degrees, or whether it be a level 4 apprenticeship or masters, 9 times out of 10, most of them know each other and are willing to offer help. And within your team, you're never short of help. There's always someone there that's an expert in what you need to learn, and even across the uni modules, networking, cybersecurity, coding, there's always someone there that has been there, they've done it, and they're always offering a helping hand.
Katie, we spoke earlier about your decision to do the apprenticeship, and one of those factors was the money. A big dividing factor is the fact that you can earn while you learn if you do an apprenticeship. How important has that been for you?
Very, because I've got all my friends, bar a couple, do just go to university, and they're enjoying it, but like I'm also enjoying it, and I can like afford more things than them, because it's so yeah, it's nice in that area where have a bit more security with my money.
Is that a big consideration young people should be taking into account?
I think it's an added bonus, but I think ultimately you need to weigh up what route you want to go down, and if that isn't available for an apprenticeship, then my advice would be to follow your heart and do what you want to do instead of opting for making some early money.
So let's rewind then a year or so ago when you started your apprenticeship, or when you applied for your apprenticeship, which may have been even longer ago. How was that process? Was it lengthy? Were there lots of things to fill in, CVs, all of that stuff? Katie?
So it was mostly just the usual stuff, so like a CV and a covering letter, which I got support from sixth form, as well as my dad, who works in Siemens, so he could read over it. Once I submitted those, I then got another email, and it was like to do like some fun little games. It was like more like to make you think, and like and it was online, so you just had to like log into a website. You were given like a password and username, and you just had to do that. And then once I did that, I got another email saying like your application, we'll get back to you. And then a couple of weeks later, I got an email saying that I've been successful with all 3 applications into Siemens, and that they would like to interview me.
And then talk to me about the interview process. Also, I bet you like the games, seeing as you like video games.
Yes. Yeah, the games were actually, surprisingly, I was worried that they were going to be like logical, but a lot of them were like, they were logical, but like they like also made you think, but they also weren't that hard. So yeah, I was very surprised about that. I thought I was going to have to like use my brain, but I didn't have to. For 3 roles, I was only interviewed twice because I had one interview was combined for both roles because they were similar. But they were really like laid back. I was really nervous for them. They were done on Teams because it was during like lockdowns and everything. So that took a bit of the pressure away. But I had actually done in-person interviews when I had a job when I was in sixth form with Tesco's. So I was used to like, I did know what interviews were like, but I was still very nervous because it was like more important job, I guess, because it was I was applying for like full-time job as well as a degree. But they were actually really informal. Like a lot of the time we were just talking about like my interests and like, because I do 3D printing, so for one of them we were mostly talking about 3D printing for the whole interview. So I was the interviews were went in really nervous, but 5 minutes into them I was a lot more relaxed because it was very like informal.
That's nice and reassuring to hear, especially for the audience, I'm sure. How did you prepare for the interviews?
As it's an apprenticeship, they're not expecting you to have like full on like details what you exactly know what you're applying for, because an apprenticeship is where you learn. So they're not really expecting you to have knowledge in like the certain, like they weren't expecting me to have railway knowledge already. The only thing you're really expected is to know a little bit about what Siemens do. So I just did like a 10-minute Google reading up on like what Siemens is and what it does and where it's like headquartered. And then most of the other time I was just thinking about like real life experiences I'd done. So I used to do volunteering in an animal shelter, so I prepared like a few answers, because like you get the traditional questions of like, tell me when you've worked well within a team or when you've had to lead a team. So I mostly just focused on the generic based questions, which there's loads of things online that help you prepare for those sort of things.
You spoke there about volunteering. You also spoke previously about a part-time job that you had. How crucial were they when applying for the role?
Very, because a lot of the questions were talking about working within a team or working with people you haven't worked with before. And working in a job at Tesco's, you're working with people you've never met before, and you have to work in a team to like not only put out the goods, but you also have to serve the customers. And the same with the animal shelter. I was working with a team of people I'd never worked with before. So I'd say they're very crucial, and they're also just really good at answering the questions, because I could just talk about things I had actually experienced, and I could talk to in like quite a casual conversation, because I had talked to like friends like, oh, how's it going at the animal sanctuary, and you can just casually talk about it.
So you've done your interview, the nerves have subsided, you've closed teams. What happens next?
Well, you just get an email saying well done in your interview, and then a couple of weeks later I was called up and they gave me compliments about my interviews. So they told me what I did well. I didn't have any negative comments, so that was quite reassuring. And then a week after that I got an email saying congratulations, you've been offered the job and signed your contract.
Wonderful, well done, congratulations. Nathan, anything there that was different for you?
So sort of from my perspective, I was internal at the time, but obviously I still needed to apply externally through the website and whatnot. So the only difference really being was I sort of explained my interests and what I wanted to do, and the people that were working here at the time said, oh, I know just the person for you and what they do, and I was pointed in that direction.
What about qualifications? Katie spoke earlier about different levels of apprenticeships. Yeah. Do you need to have a certain level of qualifications before you can work at Siemens?
So it depends what you're looking to do. So if you're wanting a level 3 apprenticeship, which is equivalent of A levels, you need 4 or 5 GCSEs, English, maths and a science, I believe. Don't quote me on it because
You're looking at me like I'm going to know the answer. I don't.
I didn't look into that one personally. Level 4, you need level 3 qualification, so A levels, or a BTEC alternative, and then likewise for level 5 or 6, A levels or BTEC alternative are required. And then to progress onto your masters, you need your undergraduate degree.
I imagine there's a full breakdown on the Siemens website. We can direct
it's
people.
put much better than how I said it.
No, you said it very well, Nathan. Tell me about your first day in this role.
It was daunting at first, but also exciting because there's so much technology there, and every other word can be an abbreviation. And I apologise earlier on the podcast for sort of speaking like a robot. So yeah, there's a lot to get your head around. But as the weeks go on, you just find yourself you're doing your job without really thinking about it. You enjoy what you do, and the days just fly by.
Talk to me about the culture of the company, because all companies say they do this, that and the other, believe in this, but sometimes just saying the words doesn't mean actually is in place. What does it feel like to work here? So
I think culture is important, because I think there's sort of a stereotype and cliche that people behind STEM are just stuck behind computer screens coding or tearing out pages of maths and equations. And I think one thing that I couldn't stress enough about the company is that they're actually looking for people as opposed to robots. People in the company are very personable, and I think that's one of the best things about the company. They function as a team and as an organisation, and there is an interpersonal side about it.
On that merit then, what do you think someone needs to have as qualities to work here?
I think the bottom line is the company's looking for someone who's driven, but more importantly, someone that they can train, someone that will listen, and someone that is a team player.
Katie, anything to add?
I think Nathan said it quite well, but yeah, Siemens are just looking for people who are just interested in learning, really.
Let's talk about skills then. You both do very different roles. You're both learning and growing towards different things. But what skills has the apprenticeships given you to date? Nathan?
Well, a whole lot in computer science, I suppose. A lot of it you take for granted when you're on your computer, and sending emails, web services, and throughout the apprenticeship you're learning about all the different protocols that allow you to use what you do on a day-to-day basis and don't really think much of it. You learn about the workings of a computer, which most people, take for granted.
And Katie, how do you think it's developed you as a person?
Well, I think my confidence in talking to different people has definitely grown. Before I did this, I had never worked in such a office environment. It made easier asking people questions, because I'm kind of getting used to because these people have been working in their jobs for years, a lot longer than I've been alive. So it's getting easier to ask them questions and learning who knows what and stuff.
That's quite interesting, because sometimes when young people go into a role and there's people who have been doing it for decades, it can feel a little bit daunting for the young person, feeling I don't know what I'm doing, or people might feel threatened if they've been doing it a long time and they see these young people coming in. Has it ever felt like that?
I don't think that's the case here at all. I think the people that have been here long term, they're genuinely excited to pass their knowledge on and teach the young people coming up through the company, because ultimately at the end of the day that they know that we're going to be in that position one day, and it keeps the company going. And I think that's what's so good about this company, is that since joining, I haven't met one single person that hasn't been lovely and helpful.
Do you agree, Katie?
Yeah, everyone I've ever talked to here have been really helpful, and if I don't know something, they're that's fine, and they go through it with me. Yeah, I've never had a problem with asking anyone a question.
That's a really important thing, because if you don't know something and you feel like you can't ask, you're not going to learn, are you? So it's nice to be able to have those open conversations. Talking about development then, because that's something that we all like to do and grow as people, and we've spoken about potentially going on to a master's in the future. How does Siemens help you come up with a plan and develop? Nathan?
So throughout your apprenticeship programme, you have the apprenticeship side of things, so you do your uni course, but equally there's the work-based side of things. So they call it KSBs here, which stands for knowledge, skills and behaviour.
Okay.
So it's a set of credentials that you sort of work towards and build a portfolio of work that show, look, I can do this job. This is what I've learned over my apprenticeship, and you showcase that to your employer and your assessor it's called an endpoint assessment for your apprenticeship. And so not only do they help you build the academic skills that you need to do your day-to-day job, you also learn a whole different bunch of knowledge, skills and behaviour that are equally as important.
So what happens after that review?
So after that review, they assess your portfolio, and well, it's very likely that you do pass, but in the instance that perhaps you've missed something out, you go back and you work towards what you've missed, and you resit for your endpoint assessment. It's not so much a test, it's a meeting that you have with your assessor and employer, and they look over your apprenticeship and go, yep, they check that you've passed your degree and met all the other apprenticeship criteria that go alongside.
In that situation, how important is self-reflection as an apprentice?
No matter what you do, you can always improve upon and learn from things that you didn't get quite right first time. Especially in this industry, as things are always changing and moving forward, you've always constantly got to look back and sort of think, what worked in the past and what do I need to do to get past this problem now?
Has there been, if we're being really open and honest, any challenges since starting your apprenticeship? Katie?
Yes, I will admit there has been a few challenges, but nothing that couldn't been fixed. With my first placement, I had a bit of trouble like settling in because the man who was supposed to be running my placement was very busy. So I just talked to my line manager, and he went, yeah, that sounds not the greatest. So we got it sorted, and I got moved to a different person and continued on from there.
How fantastic. There was someone to go to raise your concerns and get them sorted.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Any challenges for you or hurdles that you've had to jump over?
I wouldn't say so much challenges. It was very daunting at the start and a lot to learn. I suppose you could consider that a challenge. But ultimately what I could say is that my line manager's been nothing short of excellent, and any problems that I did have or questions that I needed to ask, he was there to help me.
How did you deal with that information overload at the start?
In all honesty, I don't think you do. It's something that you sort of you step away from it for the day, you come back the next day, and as long as you keep persevering, you eventually get to a position that you want to be in.
Now that's interesting. You said you come in and then you go home and you can switch off kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a big difference again between apprentices and university, because you're not living on campus.
There's definitely a work-life balance with Siemens, and I can't speak for all companies, but I would assume that it's quite a rare thing in this day and age.
Was that a big selling point for you when choosing to do an apprenticeship?
Yeah. Like I said previously, I want to go to a company where you're appreciated for an individual, and this company does just that. The human beings are personable, and so you go to work, you do your day-to-day work and get projects delivered, but you equally have a laugh while doing it. And I think that's just as important, really. If you don't enjoy what you do, then there's not much point to do it, is there?
Katie earlier spoke about how Wednesdays she has a day designated to her studies. Do you have that?
So previously it was sort of a fixed day, so I did have Wednesdays, and now as it's gone on, our team's become more flexible with it. So in your like day-to-day calendar, you or bi-weekly calendar, you book out the days that you want to study. So for instance, next week I could study on the Monday or the Thursday if I wanted to, or I might not choose to take a study day and I could take 2 the following week. So they're really flexible with that. As long as you get your 20% in, everyone's happy.
And is that always understood? Because I imagine sometimes at workplaces you can have all this work come in, there's deadlines, there's pressure. Is there any pressure for you to not do those study days?
No, there's no pressure. The company's very understanding that uni life and project work can be very hectic, and so with the sort of flexible booking your study days and whatnot, if you've got a massive load of paperwork or documents that you need to get ready for a set date, you either move your study day until after that busy period, or you take it prior if you know it's coming up. You never lose out on study. The company, that's that's one thing that's sort of a promise, I suppose, that they know that we need to get these degrees, and so they do everything in their power to help us.
Katie also mentioned earlier that she doesn't have any exams. It's just coursework based. What about you?
Yeah, there's a few exams. So in my second year, there's 2 3-hour long exams, and then another 3-hour long exam in the third year, I believe.
And you're okay with that?
I suppose so. Yeah, it's more application based. So it'd be like coding, and you physically sat down at a computer. You're doing something. You're not just churning out sheets and sheets of writing, I suppose. So
we've spoken about women at Siemens and how young women are encouraged to do STEM studies. You spoke earlier about going to schools and speaking to year 11s. But what about wider diversity and inclusion? What is being done within the culture? Katie?
So as I said before, Siemens do events on International Women's Day where it highlights, I think they do like, you can learn about women in the past who had like done major discoveries or like breakthroughs within STEM.
What does having a diverse workforce do for the bigger picture?
I think in a more general scheme of things, it gives you sort of a greater appreciation of the world around us. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know about the Indian culture out in Romania, and you just get talking to your colleagues on a day-to-day basis, and yeah, you sort of, it's nice to have an appreciation.
We've spoken earlier on about your studies and how when you were doing your GCSEs in engineering, you were the only girl in the class. Same with sixth form. But what is it like working as a female in a male-dominated industry?
Personally, I'm used to it, I guess, but I think I definitely know female friends who would definitely be intimidated by it. So that's one of my goals, is to bring more women in, because I think if you bring more women in, more women would follow. But for me, I've because it was like mainly my dad and my grandpa who were my role models, I was kind of used to that, and I knew that it was male dominated, but I went into it like, I know this is male dominated and it's my goal to make it more diverse.
How important is it to have realistic expectations before starting your apprenticeship? Whether that's about the culture of the company or whether it's about, I might be in the minority here.
I think it's very important to have realistic expectations so you know what you're going into, right? So it's less of a shock, because it's already a shock having you're starting a full-time job along with a degree. So I think it's definitely, you should go in with your research so you know exactly what it's like, but then you also go in with the knowledge of, how am I going to change this?
I asked Nathan earlier on about his first day. I didn't ask you. Katie, tell me about yours.
It was intimidating because I was going into like a building that I didn't really know, but once I got talking to people, there was a couple of graduates that had been working here for a couple of years. Once I started talking to people and they were like showing me around because I got a tour, I settled in quite quickly.
Do you think you have to be quite adaptable to do an apprenticeship because of that kind of steep learning curve?
I think sort of, but there's so much support in place that if you are struggling with bits, you can just call up your line manager and he can offer you. They also assign mentors, and now they're starting to assign apprentices get assigned mentor other apprentices. So if you've been here a year, you get assigned a new starter.
Have you guys got a new starter?
Yeah, I've got my own. I'm a mentor for a year one apprentice.
And how's that going?
All right, we've had he's based in Birmingham, so bit far from here, but yeah, we had a email exchange of just talking about what's life like, really. It was basically a casual conversation over email.
And how do you juggle that with your daily role, your own degree, and being a mentor? That's quite a big workload you've got there.
Well, it's because you're an apprentice, they don't give you loads and loads of work. Well, I don't know, I can't talk for Nathan, but for me it's definitely they know that you're an apprentice, and that so they know that you're not gonna do everything on time, or they're not going to overload you at work. For my current job, I manage a lot of certificates for review meetings. So I just get messages of like, can we move forward this one, so I can I know which certificates need to be more important, so I can focus on more of that. So it's quite easy to manage with like my workload, so I can highlight what's the more important to the least important. And then I also get I can get breaks where I can get 5 minutes and send off a message to like another apprentice.
Tell me about that task, the certificates element.
So in project engineering, they handle review meetings where the heads of like different disciplines, so you've got like a signalling discipline, you've got control systems, networks, so depending on what needs to be reviewed, different disciplines, so I arrange these meetings and I invite all these different disciplines to review these, it can be like scheme plans of like track, or it can be like location cases, or control tables. I organise these meetings so everybody attends them, and then as the meetings go on, people make comments on like if there's like they've noticed a fault with something, or there's a slight miscalculation, or there's something slightly wrong. They make a note of it, they tell me, I put that into a certificate. And then once I've written those notes down, I send them off to who needs to answer them. Mm-hmm. So if someone's drew the scheme plan, I send all the comments made on that scheme plan to them so they can make the fixes. And then they send it back to me, and I turn it into a PDF, and then I send it off, which gets reviewed. And once all the certificates are like filled out and checked, the project can continue.
So you need to be very organised and have attention to detail. Is that what you'd say? Main skills?
It was I came in and I was replacing an undergraduate who's moving on to a different project. So my first month within project engineering was basically shadowing what she was doing. So I learned a lot from her, and I assume that once I'm ending my placement, I'll do the same to the new starter, but there was like loads of like documents in place to tell, like, so if I got stuck, I could look at the document. It would be like guidelines on like what I needed to do. There was a lot of example emails, so if I needed to send out an email to someone, I could copy and paste what I needed to send, or there's loads of different people that I can just easily message and they get back to me with pretty quickly.
Nathan, work instructions, having someone to do a handover and shadow, is that something that you've had?
No, not necessarily. In my apprenticeship, so in my onboard, I think there was 6 or 7 apprentices that were taken on, including myself, and the rest of them, as far as I'm aware, they're all on placements, whereas I was the only one that was situated within one team from the beginning. So in terms of workload, I have a boatload, but that's my doing. I don't like sitting around and twiddling my fingers. So, but on the positive side, you're very much left to your own devices to manage your own workload, and the onus is on you to complete that and fulfill deadlines.
So you need to be independent. You need to be self-driven because no one's holding your hand.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say the most important skills is to be flexible and, like you said, adapt to.
So you said there that you requested to be within one team, whereas everyone else is on placements.
I didn't request to be in one team. That's I was put in system engineering because of computer science.
Okay, so if you're staying put in one place, what benefits does that give you over going to different places?
So in my situation, it's quite different because my team does a bit of everything of the business. So we do networking, we do cybersecurity, we do signalling, telecoms, software engineering, and we do the hardware. So within my team, I'm exposed to all of that without needing to go on different placements. So it's sort of, I don't know if it fell in such a way that I've been quite fortunate with the opportunity. But I still get that exposure whilst being under the remit of one team.
And I suppose the benefit is that you haven't got to get your head in gear for, right, I'm doing this now in this placement, then I'm doing this. You're just surrounded by it constantly. Yeah,
there's always a constant stream of work. And you know what you need to do. You know when you need to get it done by. yeah, you're constantly busy. So for me, that's a big plus.
Another selling point of people wanting to go to university is moving away from home. Have either of you moved away from your home to work for Siemens, Nathan?
No, I was local, so I'm based over in Caen. But I know a number of apprentices, especially from the new intake. A few of them have come up from Wales, Devon. There's a few based down in Cornwall that have moved up. So it's definitely something that isn't uncommon. And I think if you live a far enough distance away from a Siemens site, don't be discouraged to apply.
And do you know if Siemens support those people who are relocating with moving?
I believe that they do help. I believe that there are services offered. I can't speak from experience because it's not something I had to do, but I'm sure that they'd be willing to help.
And what's a positive about being local?
You sort of see everything firsthand, I suppose. Siemens as a company, I think their sort of marketing to the other schools around, I think is really good, because I can remember being at the age of 13 and probably knowing what Siemens was. So they make an active effort to go around to the schools, put their name out there, and I think it serves them well.
Katie, anything to add there? Are you based locally as well?
Yes, I am. But with my apprenticeship, because I go off to university for week blocks, I basically get to live a week's life in London. So that's quite nice. And for one of my placements, it will be in testing, which is where you physically go on site and test the equipment on the trackside. And so that will be a 3 months away from home. And I believe I'll be based in Devon.
So will they help with relocating for that project?
Yes, they will. I think they set, so if you want to get an apartment, or I knew a boy that did testing and he lived in a hotel for 3 months.
Ooh.
So
it's like Home Alone.
Yeah. So it depends on what you want to do, but they definitely help you look and they get you set up.
And when you go to London for a week at a time in your blocks, are you helped with accommodation then?
Yeah, there's a Siemens website that lists hotels that Siemens have agreements with, so you can get cheaper rooms. So you can get, when I went up to Birmingham, we went into a 4-star hotel that normally would be £150 per night, but with the Siemens agreement, we got it for £75. But everything's paid for. So when I go up to London, the hotel costs are paid for by Siemens, the food, the transport. So it's basically a week free in London. And with London prices, it's quite nice because you get to go to quite nice places for food and not pay a penny.
And again, compared to university, that would be coming out of your own pocket, your own grants or loans or whatever you've got, whereas you're getting paid your wage and then some to go and do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Gallivanting around.
Yeah.
And are the hotels nice? You mentioned 4-star.
Yeah. So in London, I've stayed at a Premier Inn just because it was only 8 minutes walk away from the university. So when I first went to university, that was the hotel I used just because I didn't really know London. So I just wanted somewhere that was local to the university, so I didn't have to get on the tube, so I could just easily walk to university. But when I go up in February next month, I'm staying in the Hilton Hotel.
Lovely.
Yes.
Let's talk about benefits of working at Siemens. Obviously, the hotel discounts. Does that apply for if you want to just go on holiday?
No, it has to be a work-related trip.
Are there benefits that you receive?
Yes, you can so Siemens have agreements with loads of different companies that you can use. There's a Siemens website called My Benefits where you can get cheaper cinema tickets, you can get cheaper gym memberships and multiple other things like that.
So would you say that Siemens really look after their own?
Yes.
Nathan, what is the main thing that makes you proud about working for Siemens?
The fact that my work serves a purpose, and it's real infrastructure that goes out there in the real world, and it's crucial to the way we move forward.
And give me one thing that is your favourite thing about being an apprentice. Community. Okay. And Katie, if there's someone listening to this who is weighing up, do I do university? Do I do apprenticeship? Do I do both like Katie at the same time? What advice would you give them?
I would give them advice that definitely think about it, because especially with an apprenticeship you do lose sort of that social side of like, you can't really go out clubbing every night because you will have to be in the office the next morning. But there are like events, like, so I go up to London, so I am at university. When I've been in London for university, I've also seen a West End show. So there's definitely events where you can do like social things, and also they have the early learning talent events where you get to meet loads of different apprentices and graduates. And because you're also working with other apprentices, you get to go out with them, so you can message them saying anyone want to go out for a pint, and yeah.
And this is a really hard question, but I'm going to throw it out there. Give me one word that describes working for Siemens. Katie. Or Nathan, whoever can think of one first.
Purposeful.
I can think of like a couple of words.
Go on, I'll let you do a couple of words, Katie. Come on.
Well, it's again, I suppose commitment, I think, is a good word. So you're committed to your job and you have a good support around it, so it makes you more committed to do your job because you know that there's helpful people along the way.
Well, Nathan and Katie, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you're busy people, and I think you've shared some really fantastic insights that will help anyone listening to this. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to you at home for listening and watching this episode of Life at Siemens.